Good afternoon, my friends. I'm going to talk about a heavy subject today. That's what I do. But today's subject is going to be personal. I've told pieces of this story before, and as I get more comfortable telling more of it, I'll probably elaborate and tell a new version of it with the new revelations and new understandings and new learnings. But, this nation, I look back at some of my friends, older friends, who grew up in the era of pensions and grew up in the era of ma, pa, apple pie, and so forth. And they don't necessarily understand what it's like to be somebody trying to survive or thrive in today's modern economy. Going way back, to high school, life was very, very difficult for me. I was a nerd. I had good grades. I tried really hard to fit in. I played sports. I enjoyed sports. I wasn't the best at them, but I enjoyed playing them. But everything that we did, I had no idea what I was going to do when I grew up. Really didn't have a great plan. Didn't really have an understanding of the world at all. I was pretty much an everyday pot smoker. Drank almost every night of the week, even as a young teenager in high school. Played in a lot of bands. Tried really, really hard to fit in wherever I could. And, as I left high school, I moved to Ocean City, Maryland, where I put on a tremendous amount of partying. I have no idea how I made it through it, but I was pickled. My brain was pickled. I was a disaster, a wreck. Everything about my life was a complete and utter wreck. And, people kept trying to bail me out, save me, keep me going. And, because everybody kept keeping me going, I had no idea what it was like to actually have that bottom hit. My bottom was a different bottom than other people's bottoms would be. But that whole process, you start out with so much calamity, so much drug use, so much bad choices, so much bad decision-making processes. You didn't understand how to live life on life's terms. None of the stuff made any sense whatsoever. So I was ill-equipped to enter into adult living. I was ill-equipped to be a responsible guy. You know what I mean? I was irresponsible. I couldn't figure out how to make it. No matter how many times somebody would give it to me, I kept thinking that there had to be something else. My mind just couldn't connect the dots. I was smart. I was book smart. I knew all kinds of stuff, but I could not function. And it took years of getting sober, years of getting my head together in 93 to try to make something of myself. And someone, once again, took pity on me, pulled me into the phone company, and, I started a 17-year career. Most people don't get that opportunity. Most people don't have someone pull them into the phone company, And because of the nature of the way life was at the time, things, mom and dad bailed me out, saved my life repeatedly. So I had a very different view of what it meant to be in dire straits. But then as I got older and I got to meet people who are really, truly in dire straits, I mean, real dire straits, can't make ends meet, can't eat, can't do anything, I just kept thinking, well, why can't you get your family to help you? Why aren't you able to figure out a way to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get your life together? Look at me. I was able to get out of it. And I was so tone deaf and clueless because I had been rescued each time. It wasn't like some heroic act on my part that did it. But then when I got into recovery, all the veneer fell away, all the excuses, all the lies I told myself to get through a given day kind of fell away. And I started really, really looking at life on life's terms, life as a grown up, as a person struggling, trying to figure out how to make everything come together. And so, I got married, ill-advised, got married, had kids. I still wasn't through my process yet. I still didn't know how to connect all the dots. I still was learning. And, she was expecting a finished product. We fought like cats and dogs. Marriage ended ugly, very, very ugly. And then there was the child support and the other bills that came from that. So you start seeing how bad choices at age 13 and 14 and 15 and 18 and 20 and 25 and so forth kept piling on top of each other. Eventually, by the time you're all said and done, I didn't have answers for a lot of the dumb mistakes I had made. A lot of them were just flat out belligerent, stupid mistakes. A lot of them were I didn't know any better. So flash through all that. I get my life together. I get my act together. I start really, really focusing on my career. I start focusing on getting schooling done. I start focusing on, a whole new way of life. But people like to hold on to the old you. They don't want to let you become the new you. They want to remind you of the you were back in the day. That new you, they don't believe it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. They want to keep you in that box from where you were way back when. Doesn't matter how many years of sobriety you have under your belt. Doesn't matter how many choices you made that are different. They want to keep you there because that right there is safe for them, right? That's what they know. And it keeps you in a lower hierarchical place to them. And they don't let you go. They don't let you out of it. Now, flash forward, I get married again. This time, thought I was doing a better job, but all I did was a reactionary jump out of one thing, get into another. Had more children. She ended up cheating on me, running off with some kid 20 years younger than me. And more child support, more pain and suffering. Now, all of a sudden, I've got to be a part of the 1% just to make ends meet, because now I've got child support from marriage number 1 and child support from marriage number 2. And, I would never, ever, ever trade in any of my children. They're the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. But the flip side is that if I would have had better life skills, if I would have known better about cause and effect and about the costs and how to live, life skills, right? Maybe I would have made some different choices. Maybe not. So all of a sudden, you've got bills based on a life with a spouse, based on a life with children. Go to school to get education so that you can take care of your family. And now you've got bills to cover that. And now all of a sudden, you're not just covering 2 households from the first fail. Now all of a sudden, you're covering 3 households. And they have no idea how you're going to chase the next dollar to survive. Then all of a sudden, you start realizing maybe it's all hopeless. Maybe there's no point in waking up the next morning. Maybe this whole thing is just a little bit too big for me. And you start thinking suicide. You start thinking it can't get much worse than this. And then you lose your job. And you realize it really can get worse than this. So then all of a sudden you look at your credit score. And you realize that the student loans are banging you every month, twice a month for your credit report. And then you realize that during your time when you were without a job, that all of a sudden the state is dinging you on your credit report for missed child support payments. Now all of a sudden you're a deadbeat. Now all of a sudden you're not eligible to refinance your home to make bills lower so that you can pay back the arrears. Now all of a sudden, when jobs go to review your background check, they see that you're behind on your child support. They see that you're behind on everything. And they say, this guy is irresponsible. We don't want to hire someone that's irresponsible. Then all of a sudden the car breaks down and you've got no money to pay for the car repairs, and you go out there borrowing and stealing, bumming money from whoever would give you some. Then all of a sudden the house goes into foreclosure. You're about to lose everything now. And the story goes on for a while. Fact of the matter is that in my case, I bounced back. In my case, I took the bull by the horns and things worked out, luckily for me. But if we look at the way the economy is set up, most people don't have anyone to bail them out if things go wrong. Most people don't have the ability to survive any kind of shock to their financial situation. Most people are stuck in a spiral that leaves them feeling helpless and hopeless. Then add in having special needs children. Add in having children who need you more than ever. So you can't go out there and work a second job. All of a sudden, you got situations that are way beyond your control. The whole thing is spiraled out bigger than you could ever imagine. Now what do? Now the conservative will wag their finger at you and go, you should have made better choices. The Democrat will say, should have made better choices. A progressive is supposed to say, we have solutions for imperfect people. We have solutions for people so that they have a second chance, so that their life is not forfeit because of decisions that started out when they were children. For issues from when they were children. Issues that go way beyond their ability to make choices. When you're a kid, you don't have the right, you don't have the choice to say, I don't want to be bipolar, or I don't want to be an alcoholic, or I don't want to be depressed, or I don't want to have insecurity, or I don't want to have fear, or I don't want to have all these things. You know, you don't have the right, you don't have the choice. It's kind of like you're waiting and looking up to mom and dad or the people at the school system to defend you or wherever. You're looking for safety. Progressivism, to me, is about providing safety to imperfect people. It's about providing a just society that means that people don't freaking completely have hope ripped out from under them because of decisions, maybe even that they made, maybe that someone else made for them. But here's the deal. When jobs are scarce, when financial calamity hits, most families in this country split up, unfortunately. Everything was fine as long as there was money to buy the Christmas gifts. Everything was fine provided you could pay the bills on time. But once the bills start piling up and once the pain and stress starts kicking in of the way life is set up, people start going their own separate ways. They stop pulling together. They start getting selfish. And there are a lot of broken homes out there with a lot of people trying to balance two households and a lot of kids trying to live in a crosshairs of dueling parents. And we build a society that makes life even tougher than it needs to be. And so those situations are even more volatile. You look at racism in America today. So much of that is bred by the economic narratives that keep us in stress, in constant fight or flight mode. Xenophobia, so much of that is brought on by misinformation, but a fear of losing one's viability. People are afraid that the few jobs that they're left out there are going to be taken by the guy coming in illegally from some other country, seeking to take care of their family. All of this is a decision made beyond the individuals. A lot of this pain and suffering comes as a direct result of forced scarcity by our federal government. And we don't oftentimes take a look at how the dominoes of our life and other people's lives and the situations they're stuck in, how they came to be in the first place. Why are they struggling? Why are they in generational poverty? Why are they in jail? Why have they made bad decisions selling drugs or selling their ass or killing someone? What got someone so frustrated that they bought 20 or 30 guns, went up to some hotel room, and decided to go ahead and start shooting on people in a crowd? Why didn't that person have access to health care? Or why wasn't someone able to spot that there was trouble coming? Folks, there's a lot of domestic abuse in this country. A lot of people that are completely off their rockers, that are completely stressed out, and have no fat to trim, and are under such extreme pressure and stress that it comes out by kicking the cat, hitting the kid, or beating their spouse, or killing someone. The economic narrative in this country always leaves out these key things. We want to focus on gun control. Maybe that's a good thing to do. Maybe it's not. Point is, we want to focus on gun control. But the problem started way before that gun ever made it in that guy's hands, didn't it? We want to focus on racism. But the problem started way before that person ever said the N-word or ran after someone else and called them something else or denied them an opportunity. No, these things go back, and they go back. We always want to stop short. We don't want to diagnose where the root of the problem lies. We always just want to deal with the symptoms. We get stuck in symptoms. We ignore the root cause. Why is that? Because it's hard to understand that an economic motive could somehow or another bring about the conditions that would allow someone to resent another human being on the basis of their skin, or on the basis of their sexual identity, or on the basis of their country of origin, or the basis of their religion. We don't want to look back and realize that lost opportunity is the Kickstarter. When people start feeling hopeless and helpless, they start looking for a scapegoat. This is the essence of fascism. This is why the flag and stuff like that is so important. This is why Mike Pence is out there blathering on about the importance of uniting around the flag. It's a fake thing. It's a symbol that allows people to ignore the root causes of these problems. These are things that we don't take the time to walk through. We want to react. We want to have an immediate answer. We want to just jump on people. We want to pounce. But what is the underlying issue? Have you solved anything? I was speaking to a young woman earlier today who felt like MMT is great and all that, but it misses the racial analysis. I heard that from another individual who felt like MMT doesn't address race. Well, guess what? It doesn't. MMT is pure economics. It's just simply describing how currency works. So it's getting rid of a lie that prevents us from helping people that are in most need of help. It takes away the lies that block us from providing sustenance to poor children. It takes away the lie that takes us from green energy, which would get us out of wars for geopolitical resources that we're fighting for, like oil. Think about this for a minute. If you don't understand how economics plays into every aspect, let's go to the police department in Ferguson for a minute. Ferguson, the report came back to show that the police department lived and died on fining people and trumping up fines to be able to sustain their department. People are getting constantly over-policed for no reason. They weren't there to actually be helped. They were there as a revenue stream for the police department. That police department doesn't need funding based on fines and over-policing. That police department needs federal funds to pay for it, whether they arrest one person or 1,000. They should not be dependent on fines and making people's lives hellish in the name of making money. This is what austerity brings. And austerity is the underlying undercurrent that makes it so that you have $100 copay to go to a psychiatrist that you got to wait 6 months to see. This is the austerity that makes it so that we don't want women to be able to have access to birth control because we think our tax dollars pay for it. So there is, again, going back to the root causes. We judge the behaviors and actions of others based on the fact that we don't want our taxes to pay for it. Based on the idea that we don't want our hard-earned tax dollars to pay for someone else's bad choices. And then when you talk about maybe we can make it better for the next generation, maybe we'll make college free. All of a sudden you get the people, well, I paid for my student loans, why shouldn't you? This faux fairness. And if you can't hear the gunshots in the background, I live in Tejadistan. I can't help it, folks. It's the way it is. I'm not a teabagger, but damn it if I'm not surrounded by them. In any event, you look around and you realize that austerity, people are protecting their precious private property. They're worried about all this private property and stuff because they know that other people are desperate and they got to hunker down. They got to prevent those desperate sons of bitches from taking their stuff. Instead of making it so that the people weren't desperate, they would rather arm themselves to the gills to keep them off of their private property. Again, it's easy to say they're just bigots, racists, whatever. And maybe they are. But the core reason why they are there and the way that they are there is austerity. It is called no money in the economy, people doing stupid things to survive. And then others feeling morally righteous to shoot them the fuck down. Because after all, their TV set's worth more than a life. But it always goes back to when you don't have desperate people don't do desperate things. And when desperate people don't do desperate things, you have relative peace and harmony. But what happens? Is peace and harmony sell? No, sadly it doesn't. It doesn't sell well on TV. It doesn't sell well. And it also doesn't play into the power narrative. It doesn't play into the power narrative. Everybody wants to be 1 inch above the pig slop. Everybody wants to be one step up. And so going back to my own story, I'm a guy that got pinched for a very, very small amount of marijuana back in 2002. I used to be afraid to say that out loud. Now I don't care. But I got arrested for it. And they were trying to trump up the charges. I had a pipe, I had papers, I had a baggie. Naturally, I must be a grand distributor or something like that. It's just a guy with some weed. But it took better than 10 years for me to get to a point where I could find work. Now, this is a guy with 2 fucking master's degrees, freaking certifications out the wazoo. Now, imagine how hard it is for somebody who's been busted for prostitution or who's been busted for dealing drugs that lives in a very, very compromised environment that doesn't have any choices. They are forever outside of the American dream. They are forever economically non-viable. Their survival instinct kicks in. What do? Whatever it takes. There are people today who cannot earn a living because of situations from their past. Unacceptable. We have made it so difficult to live. And here we are, we're coming fast, hard, toward what looks like it could be another recession. Donald Trump is trying to cut taxes for the wealthy. Does nothing for you and I. However, the Democrats are doing something almost as insidious. The Democrats are trying to raise fear about deficits. Deficits, public deficits. In other words, the government's deficit is private sector surplus. The government doesn't keep dollars, it deletes dollars because it creates dollars. Every new dollar, every time they spend is a brand new one. They don't have a piggy bank with old crumpled up dollar bills. That's not how it works. Now, you and I might have that because we don't create our own dollars. So when the government stops spending, the money in the economy dries up because the government is the lone creator of the US dollar. Banks give us credit. They provide debt. They provide IOUs. Those IOUs zero out once they're paid off. And if you default, they're written off. The only thing the bank keeps is the interest. The only way net financial assets are created and kept in the economy are through government spending. However, it's important to understand that dollars are not static. They don't just constantly stay there. Dollars are constantly deleted and purged from the system and constantly born and reborn into existence. It's not like a dollar just keeps floating around because you're thinking about a piece of paper. Most paper isn't what dollars are. A dollar is a law. It's a concept. It's a tally. It's the government agrees to take $1 back for $1 of tax. It's an agreement between you and the government. $1 for $1. Nothing more than that. But it's not necessarily the piece of paper. It could be an electronic keystroke. So when the government makes keystrokes scarce, all of a sudden you have teabaggers like the fools across the street popping off their gun, bam, 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 gearing up for some civil war or something like that. You have all kinds of people hating on the people coming into this country for God knows what reason. You have people despising each other. And then you've got activists that want us to focus on that symptom instead of going back to the root. And the root helps the poor white kids in Appalachia and the poor black kids in Compton. It helps the water supply in Flint, and it also saves Puerto Rico. It rebuilds our Rust Belt and provides jobs where no jobs are, because our government can be the employer of last resort with a federal job guarantee. All these problems are man-made. They're made by our government appealing to neoliberalism. And the neoliberalism affects our brains, our collective minds. And we make collectively bad decisions because we want to focus on the symptom instead of going back to the root cause. So how many other families will break up in the near future? How many more mass shootings will occur? How many more racially motivated hate crimes will occur? And how many freaking sexual orientation deaths will occur? How many more wars will we get into in pursuit of oil? How many issues are we facing today that would be solved immediately by us understanding that our federal government is not constrained in any way, shape, or form by taxes, because taxes don't pay for spending. Taxes are used to drive our need for that piece of paper, that dollar, that digital currency. Otherwise, we'd be trading in chicken necks and friggin' seashells. The U.S. government needs to provision itself, but it keeps it scarce so that the wealthy can prosper, while the poor suffer needlessly. And the middle class, the vaunted middle class, gets closer and closer to the poor. We are becoming a feudal society overnight, but it's really not overnight. This has been going on for 40 plus years, and we're just now waking up. Some of us. There are many, many more that are still asleep. Many, many more will go out there to a rally to fight against the fascists. We got to fight fascism. Fascism is a direct result of a lack of opportunity. Look at Weimar Republic. You want to talk about hyperinflation? Look at Weimar. Weimar was totally butchered, ruined by the Treaty of Versailles. They had the worst economy ever. And along came Hitler promising to make Germany great again. Fascism is a direct result of a bad economy. And then all of a sudden, scapegoating. Fierce national pride, patriotism, jingoism. All these symbols to make us feel better about ourselves in spite of the shitty economy that's shitty because our government is doing it, but we focus on the poor guy over there and say it's his fault. We put the blame, we punch down, instead of realizing that the poor guy doesn't create dollars, it's the government that does, and it's breaking us. It's destroying us, not because it has to, but because we don't demand that we fix it at the root. We go chasing the KKK rallies. We go chasing all these different fascist things. And it feels good because, damn it, they're not doing good things. But their existence is a symptom of a greater evil. And it's up to us as real progressives to listen to the stories of the suffering and begin to understand where it comes from. And take no shortcuts, but go back to the root and fix it there. Then, and only then, will you have a just society. You want to know how to solve racism? You already know the answer. Fascism creates enemies. Fascism creates scapegoats. And fascism thrives on a horrific economy that keeps pitting the little people against each other. I hope my personal story helps you understand that it can happen to anyone. I'm a well-educated man. I have a lot of different skills. And I fell on hard times and made bad decisions in my life and have been unable to dig out even to this day. Even to this day, I struggle because of a life full of mistakes and because of an economy built to kick you in the teeth when you're down. You want to talk about deadbeat dads? Make the economy work for them too. You want to talk about kids suffering? Make the economy work for families. You want to talk about green energy? Make the economy work to bring about green energy. You want to talk about a disastrous education system? Make the economy work to bring quality educators in and make it so that educations are right. You want to talk about healthcare? Make our economy work to make healthcare a right. And you want to talk about hope? Well, the only thing that gives me hope is an understanding of modern monetary theory and an understanding that if we as a team, as a movement, embrace the truth, we too can save lives and fix racism, jingoism, xenophobia, green energy, student debt relief, Medicare for all, and a host of other things. But if you decide to short circuit that process and you decide you're going to just focus on the social ills and not figure out where they started from, if you're going to choose to short circuit that process, you're never going to get anything. This is why identity politics kills us. It's not that there aren't bad people. It's not that there isn't racism. It's not that there isn't all these problems, xenophobia and jingoism, you name it. But the root cause kills all those problems. One fell swoop, starting with a federal job guarantee. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a good day.